Okay, so week 9 heading at you, week 8 behind us, and it was fun to read. Although I really heard some of you struggled with last night's Learn Together, where we ventured off the stimulus and did something a little different. And, I'll say this, it's the teacher mode's coming out at me again, right? Like, if you struggle with understanding what I'm asking for, come see me. I mean, I do have one of the students in here, and I'm not going to mention who, has been coming to see me more often, and I really see an improvement in uh, um, the quality and the ability to get work done. So sometimes in 100% online classes, we think we can do it with, it's like it's 100% online, and maybe it's not that. Maybe it's just that your schedule and my schedule don't line up, and give me a little bit of a notice, but I'll do my best to come and connect with you. So I just want to put that out there again. And some of you heard, which after you had posted about making from here on out, you need to do validation of some kind so that because you have to assume the user's not going to do what you want. And so, how do you handle it when the user does that, right? Of course, when we test our own code, we're going to give it the correct data because we know what the program wants, but the users do not. We know what the code wants, the users do not. So, Web Dev Simplified example, I thought was a good one, relatively easy, and you can customize that logic. As a matter of fact, I want to show you what I did after. And let me just show you the code. So what I did after I had posted this, I have this on my local system. Of course, the built-in required is great. And that's just if they don't submit anything at the field has to be filled out. But that doesn't determine if a certain number or a particular input. So one of the things I did is I limited this. And if they went, and I should have actually said this can only build so many units, right? And if I put P here, then it would tell them I can only create 15 or less HTML elements. And that really, I could have done this is I could have made that red. I probably should have. And I think that was a good way to do it. And if I came back in here and I did 10, right? And then I did something like K, which we know in this case is not a correct element, then it would say, I can't build that element, try again. Now, in either case, and I should have done it in the other one, I cleared the input fields. Okay, so what I did, and it's not the most elegant, but it is a way to do it, is in the event listener, I said if it's greater than 15, then I pushed this string into that empty array. And then else, assuming it was less than 15, right, I went ahead and did the other work. So you could only do checking the second field if the first one was correct. And then how I did this was I just gave it an array of the elements I could create. And again, I should have probably here inputted in the user interface, told them here's the items I can create. But then I said if that array HTML allowed includes my HTML element, then I would go ahead and do the loop and display it. Else, I'd push that other string into the errors, and then I would check to see if there was any errors, and then I would display them. Okay, so really, in this sense, I'm just showing you how you can customize that logic to meet your particular need. Okay. So I know that each of you approach this a little differently, it seemed, which is really what you want. You want students to do that, right? You want that to be true. Okay, so just agree again, I'll reiterate this from now on. If you write any code for this class, you need some level of validation. For this week, I was fine with just the required, but here on out, you need to give the user some feedback if they do not give you the input that you're expecting. Okay. And of course, that goes for the dev one, which I talked about in week 9 Learn Together. I recorded that yesterday. But what I want to say here is on the for week 9 code up, he gets into I love this section. I love that we're learning about local storage and how to make your data persist. I talk about that in week 9, Learn Together. But I want to say when he goes over the UUID and using a third party library, there's many ways to acquire third party libraries. Let me go back here. And in this case, you could install npm UUID, but I think you can't do version 4, which is what the code examples we're using. And UUID is really just a function, basically, that you can bring into your environment, your code, to when you run it, when you call it, it creates a unique identifier, a unique ID. So I just want to tell you, I've had students in the past when they go to do this code up have a little bit of a challenge because he gives an alternative way to just reference that in your HTML. But students in the past have had issues with that. So I just want to show you the way I recommend doing this is here's the link to his GitHub where he actually provides that code, right? So I would just take this code, copy it, and here's the name of that UUID. That's the actual name of the file. I'm just copying the contents because I'm going to create it locally. So I did this for, let's see, my 9 that I did for next week. So I just created in that directory, which I probably should at this point start creating a JS directory. And I think from here on out I will. I'll probably fix this before then. But I just copied that, and now my editor got rid of some of the, let me just show you what I mean here. See this is actually this is what we call minified. It takes all the spaces out of it, so it's as small as possible. So in my environment, right, it just deminifies it, meaning I can read the code, which you don't have to read the code. Might be a fun experiment. But really all you have to do is create that file locally, and then in your index, just reference it. And in this case, and you'll learn about this, how to separate code into different files of what they actually do. Okay, so I definitely recommend, even though I didn't talk about it, is having, your app, which is really your event listeners, okay, and then your functions so that you know where all of your functions are at. And then that UUID just sitting there and linked inside your HTML, okay? All right, so what I want to do here, now that I've kind of gone over that, is one of the things I talk about in week 9, and I give you the list of requirements for Dev 1. I'm going to show you my past, a code example of Dev 1, and then just know I'm going to be taking my EV concept, my how to, capture and calculate charges. I'll be redoing it for my example, but for this now, so I can just show you something, I'm going to show you what I did in prior semesters. So I'm going to open this up, close these things down real quick, just run my live server just to give you an idea. Now, what this is rock, scissors, paper. And this is the term I want you to start understanding. And I talked about it a little bit in week 9, Learn Together. And it's the idea of CRUD operations. So create, read, update, and delete. Okay. So when we're creating data, right, we're asking the user for input, we're creating data. We're going to learn starting this week how to use local storage to store that data, right? So we can create it, we can read it back, we can update it, or we can delete it. So in this case, like if somebody wanted to play my game, I notice I'm doing user validation. It says, hey, can you enter your player name? It's a little snarky here. And now it reflects, okay, who's playing? So then I start playing, and then it, of course, captures each game. So in this case, what we've done is we've then done the create and we've done the read. So when the user gives you information, in this case, plays a game, you capture that, you store it into local storage, and then you render it back to the screen. And now for the update, You can, and in this case, I did an update of giving because I was trying to imagine for my gameplay, I really wouldn't have them update the game because it's like that game is done and you don't update any of that data. So I had to come up with another way to let them update. So I ended up doing a review. Okay, so right, and I gave them the ability to give a review to the game, blah, 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 return to the game, right? So now that I have a review, thanks for your review. You can see that. You can modify it if you wanted to, right? And here's the details of that game. I could delete it. So here I have the update by here, updating some kind of their data and then being able to delete, which is CRUD, the D in CRUD. So this was a fun one for me to do. I actually really enjoyed it. It was fun. And I look forward to how I'm going to implement in these concepts, right, going forward. I really should go back here because we're talking about, just the ideas. But I wanted to give you a little, just a quick view of mine. Now, I don't show you this to sometimes what happens is you look at somebody's output and it's easy to go, I could never do that. But break it down into its more simple parts, which I'm going to have you do starting week 9. And Andrew, I'm sorry, but we are going to go back to the stimulus. And I heard your comment about, well, there's nothing new. Well, really, the determination of stimulus has been done, and we've figured out how to do that from a coding perspective and how to do simple outputs. Now, what we need to turn our attention to is how do we interact with the user, right? So in this case, we're not even really fully doing that, but when they give you adjusted income, they give you filing status and number of kids, then you're going to determine check amount. And when you do it for week 9 and step forward, we really are just capturing every time it's run. So it's not the idea of a form submission, but it's the idea of CRUD, create, read, update, and delete. And so I'm kind of trying to drill these concepts in because when you're working out in professional realms, you hear this, everybody kind of says, well, have you created a CRUD application? Well, for this class, your Dev 1 is your CRUD application. So you can, and I think I've mentioned this to most of you, either continue your Dev 0, right? Or come up with a new concept for Dev 1. So I just want you thinking about this and as we move forward. So thank you very much. It's been a fun week. I know some of you struggled with week 8 Learn Together, but the idea was to kind of just, throw out a little bit of a challenge and have you update. I saw some people put text input. I thought it was great because that's a fun way to do that assignment. I think that's it for me. So let's all disagree that from here on out, we do some kind of form validation, giving feedback to the user, assuming they do not give us the right kind of data. Okay, or programming, coding for that example. All right, have a great weekend. Make sure you watch this. I'll actually probably post this out on Discord so that those of you that are working on week 9 code up, you'll get this information and hopefully not go through that bit of a frustration my prior students had. All right, peace out.